We've got water, we've got brushes, right. Are you recording?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what to do. Got any suggestions?
Did you want to do the lonely apple?
You want a lonely apple?
Well, whatever
Well, I can do that
inspires.
at home, but well, have you got any ideas?
Preferences? Shelley? Would you do one of Shelley?
Do one of Shelley?
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to kind of draw Shelley.
I'll do the tea.
I think he's got something of Shelley. It's a blank sort of inscrutable look. I suppose actually we could possibly even, I'm just wondering if we're about getting rid of that green. Yeah, mind you, I don't really like getting rid of stuff when it's on there. See what I mean? Whether the green doesn't detract too much. Well, what could we make it?
I mean, you could make it black.
I was thinking of that actually. Yeah, that's. It's funny, I was thinking of making it black.
Well, it's just that I thought, well, if you minused one colour, the obvious thing would be. I think that's much better.
I can't remember what I was going to say now. If that was in
A show, I think you're saying.
yeah, if that was in a show, I think people would look at it and think, I actually haven't seen that before.
Yeah.
You know, they wouldn't think, oh right, it's like another portrait, another landscape. You know, it's like it's got the usual. It's got kind of idioms in I've seen before in paintings. I kind of think they might look at that and think, actually, I actually haven't kind of seen quite that arrangement, that composition, those colours. No, I mean, I think if anything, it's funny that I was looking at those Aubrey Beardsley works because it does have some of that in both in the arabesques and in the strong black and, well, not white, but you know, black and pale tones.
Yeah.
But then it's something I've been interested in before as well. I mean, I've been interested in his work before. I mean, I was interested in Salvatore Rosa, his self-portrait, where he's got this black beret he's wearing against the sort of bright blue sky.
Yeah.
And I used that in what was it? So when I took up painting again in 1997, I used that in a little picture of Edmund. I think, you know, when you do a painting, you want to be a bit surprised by it, don't you? You don't want to think, oh, that looks like a lot of other things that I've seen. You want to think, oh, it doesn't. Which is kind of quite hard for painting because there's so many predecessors. But it's not impossible. When I did poetry with children in schools, I used to say to them, I want you to write a poem about something you're a world expert on, that you know all about, and nobody else knows as much as you. And they said, well, there's nothing like that. And I said, well, you know, how about what you think about when you're in bed? You're the world expert on that. It must be something that's happened. Maybe you've had an accident, you've cut yourself, or you got lost, or you know, what was it like when you had mumps or something? You know, you were ill. You're the world expert on that experience, and if you write that down, it will be unique because nobody else has had it quite that way.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, your mother got you a book or a game, or you know, your father came in and said something particular. What exactly did he say? Because you're the world expert on what he said to you, and what your mother said to you, what they did, what it felt like, the colour of your bed clothes, what you could see out the window, the wallpaper in your room. You're the world expert on that. So if you write that down, it will be unique. And I think that translates into pictures, though it's not quite so easy to define it. But basically, if you put down your experience exactly as you want to, you know, the things that resonate to you, then you will create something that people haven't seen before.
Yeah.
It kind of feel has a freshness about it, because you're. I mean, why am I writing about? It's just the things to me. There's a sort of kind of crossover, because people said my poems are quite visual. You know, they've got strong images in.
Yeah.
And I kind of see paintings as being quite poetic, really.
Yeah.
You know, that just as words rhyme or have assonance or alliteration, sounds in common, sounds that link them. I see paintings that have shapes that link them, colours that link them, and obviously they're the black colours. You know, you've got the curve here, you've got a curve going round there, not quite a strong curve, but you know, that's again makes a variation on a theme.
Yeah.
And you've got the yellow and the orange, and the yellow and the orange in a different configuration, and you've got the equivalence, or possibly, and it's a bit cliche actually to have a candle and a as a symbol of life, but it wasn't intended really to be a symbol of life. It was just intended to be something burning. So if you want to interpret it as that, you can. But it's not meant to be, we're all candles in the wind. In fact, you know, I kind of, from that point of view, I'd rather it wasn't there really. But I didn't know.
Well, you can't be afraid of misinterpretation.
Besides which, you know, what's wrong with something if it is. You know, a painting is not an idea.
Exactly.
I mean, it starts with an idea, it contains an idea, it comes from an idea, but what it is actually an experience, and it's a visual experience. So, you know, I don't think you have to worry quite so much about cliches in painting in terms of ideas, because if you're going to, or art in general, visual art, because if you're going to treat or address the issue of death, for example, that's a real cliche. So I mean, nobody would ever do that. But you do it in a way which works for you, which comes from your experience and how you conceive it and feel it. And so it's not the same way of dealing with death or whatever other emotion or idea as the other person before you has done. So I suppose the idea of a candle is a cliche, but the relationship in this way and the colours, or the lack of colour because it's black, is perhaps not the cliche.
Yeah. And
when we look at a painting, we want to look at something that's not a cliche. We don't mind if the idea is a cliche. You know, like the skull, for example. I mean, Damien Hirst was criticised for using like a skull and a cigarette and an ashtray. You know, it's like death, smoking. I didn't see it like that at all. I didn't experience it as being a cliche, and I thought that people had misunderstood him by saying, "Oh, you know, very weak symbolism." So I didn't think it was symbolism. I thought it was actual. Psychological portraiture. I thought it was actually a self-portrait, the skull. It's him in his studio. It's what he feels like. It's what he experiences. It's not him thinking about mortality. It's him experiencing a kind of death in life, a detachment from reality in his daily routines.
Yeah.
And I suppose for me the idea of sort of change, loss, transformation is very important. I don't know, there seems to be something very resilient about the face, the woman, something very enduring, but we know it isn't. So I think paintings tell you something. You know, you might think, oh yeah, I'd like some green down there on the candle, which is what I did think, but the painting then says, yes, but it's uncomfortable, this green sitting there. It's not the right colour in that space. It's not contributing to the whole. It's a little bit out of place. You know, it's like someone in a football team and they're all wearing red and someone's wearing kind of orange or pink, you know. It's kind of almost right, but not quite. So it's a bit like that. And as soon as the candle went from green to black, suddenly there was a kind of, I don't know if you call it a tension so much as a completion, a wholeness, you know, an integrity about the painting that wasn't there to the same level before. And yeah, it does make it more intense and more severe. Leonard Cohen said seriousness is deeply agreeable to the heart. And I think, you know, there's a place for superficiality and soap operas and kitsch and everything else, you know. It's there, it's part of life. It's like eating a sweet. You know, it's a little kick, a little frisson, a buzz you get from it. But I think you want more than that. And this painting has more than that. It's more monumental. Even I do it myself. There's something, that's how I feel about it. And it's actually more reassuring in some way. This is like looking at deeper issues, stronger emotions, and to my mind containing them and being able to accept them, and also feeling not entirely dejected or overwhelmed by them, but being able to live peacefully with these deeper, stronger things. And that to me is the background. I mean, that's very important. It's not just bleak. I mean, that would not be very nice, because it's something that could easily be done. Bleakness or nihilism, you know, futility, lack of comfort. And I wouldn't want to do that, because I don't think that's the truth. I think you might face serious things. Facing these serious things is the way that someone experiences their soul, experiences their deeper self, and actually experiences not only satisfaction but security from engaging with that level. And people that don't, who want to avoid that level, that degree of seriousness or reality, psychological, spiritual, emotional reality, they're kind of skating on thin ice because it's always there, and it's a very insecure position to be in, because you never know what's going to happen, and you're afraid it is going to happen, and you're going to have to confront things in that way. So I think it's better to do that voluntarily, to accept that dimension of life. It doesn't stop kind of more superficial things from being there or enjoying them. It just means they're in perspective and you're not relying on them as your only source of sustenance. Rather like if you were going to rely on eating sweets all the time, it wouldn't be very healthy for you. And it's the same thing. You know, you can eat sweets sometimes, but actually you want a decent, substantial meal to sustain you. And I think the same thing, you know, emotionally and mentally, to sustain you in life, you do need to be able to go deeper, be prepared to do that. And it's okay. It's not, you know, a big scary thing. It's not going to kind of make your life fall apart, which a lot of people seem to think it is. And if you save it up, and then eventually you're forced to experience that through some kind of major event in your life, which can be a negative one, like a loss or grief, or can be a positive one even, like, you know, something you want and it happens, that can still bring up deep and powerful emotions. You know, winning the lottery, and some people's lives go to pieces when they've got something they really want, all this money, because it affects a change which they're not capable of dealing with. So I think society in general needs to engage on that level and be prepared to look at that level of reality, not just individuals. And culturally we don't do that. Culturally we're psychologically and spiritually at a rather elementary level. Art's one of the areas where that level can be brought to people's attention, it can be explored, it can be communicated. It's one of the things that art can do. And I think this painting is something that I've done, you know, attempted to do that, attempted to explore something that is stronger than just everyday experience. I didn't know I was going to do that, but it happened. You know, I think paintings have a life of their own, and to some extent they tell you what they need to be. That's one way of putting it. Another way of putting it might well be that stuff comes up from the unconscious. So part of a painting is your conscious intention. Yes, I want to do this, this is my idea. You start doing it, and then something else starts happening as well, which is material from the unconscious, which is kind of coming up, and you're having to engage with that. And it's an exploration. To that extent, it is an exploration. I think that's probably enough for now.